Kia ora and hello, friends. Welcome back to the Restoring Connections podcast. Matthew Dawson here, and we are talking about healing and strengthening your most important relationships. If there is someone in your life that you want to be closer to, that you want a deeper connection with than what you currently have right now, then it is our passion and our joy to support you in that space. If you have a relationship that's under threat because circumstances are tough, or because you did something really dumb, or they did something really dumb, or you both did something really dumb, and you do not want this relationship to slip away. You are in pain, but you genuinely love this person, and you don't want to lose the connection, then it is our joy and our privilege to support you in that space. That's what this is all about. If there's someone in your life that you hate and want to see blown to pieces, and want to get away from as quickly as you possibly can, then you might not find this very helpful. You probably don't need our help with that. This is really for those of us who, yes, you're in pain, but the relationship is valuable to you, and you don't want to see it slip away. You want to see it last. You want to see it go the distance. So we're talking about personal responsibility, proactive care, powerful communication, healthy boundaries. These are the things that, for us, we have observed year after year after year are just the bedrock of what make a relationship really work. And notice these are all things that you can do as an individual, because that's where, if we kind of go, oh, okay, what makes a relationship work? Grace and chemistry and da-da-da-da-da, a lot of these things are things that they kind of require both people to cultivate. And yeah, that ultimately, of course, it takes two for a relationship to really work. But sometimes that kind of approach can be quite disempowering, because you go, okay, well, I'm only in charge of me. Like, I can't make my partner do this. I can't make my business partner or my romantic partner or my child, or, I'm struggling to do a good job with this myself, let alone try to make them do it. And the more I try to force them into it, it doesn't work. So that's where we've focused all of our curriculum with Restoring Connections on what an individual can actually do with their half of the connection, right? You can take personal responsibility for yourself regardless of what the other person is doing. You can proactively care and feed the connection regardless of the choices the other person makes. You can communicate powerfully in a healthy way that moves. It's powerful because it moves things forward. You can do that regardless of whether or not the other person is communicating powerfully. You can establish healthy boundaries for yourself regardless of whether the other person respects those boundaries, or regardless of whether the other person sets healthy boundaries for themselves or agrees with you about your boundaries. You can set healthy boundaries for yourself because you are in charge of you. And that's what makes a healthy relationship healthy, is that you have two whole and free individuals from a place of freedom and choice who are behaving in a way that causes the connection to grow, right? So I'm hoping that you find this empowering as an individual. Okay, the topic that we're diving into, a bit of a different one, but it's something that I have been chewing on for quite a long time, and I'm quite excited about jumping in here and kind of wrestling with this. And I'd love to invite feedback on this particular topic. Reach out if you've got thoughts, or leave comments, below, because this is probably one that could be batted around a fair bit. But it's really this question of the way I frame the question is, are all of these negative labels helping us? Is this actually proving helpful? Because from where I'm sitting, I'm feeling like we are swimming in an ever expanding ocean of isms, right? It's like there is, every time I turn around, there's a new ism. There's this ism and that ism, and it's descriptors for philosophies and behaviors and ideologies. And my question is it helping us? Is it helping us towards the goal of more peace in our close relationships? Is it helping us towards the goal of more unity and connection and partnership, across political platforms, and between people from different political ideologies? Is it helping us work together? Is it helping us to heal the brokenness of the past and form new ways of cooperating together in new levels of honor and respect and dignity and love? Is it helping us? Are these descriptors moving us forward, right? Ultimately, I know that they can be, one thing I think we probably all agree with is they're definitely often somewhat comforting in the immediate, to be able to just say, okay, my husband is a narcissist, or, that's just, toxic masculinity, or that's just toxic feminism. I don't know. Like I know that, I think, I can see how these descriptors are that, somewhat comforting in the immediate, as a way of sort of settling, like, oh yes, I'm not crazy, that's what's going on, it's kind of settles something. And so I get that, but I'm pushing back on that a little bit. I'm asking the question, long term, is this proving to be helpful? Is this proving to actually move us forward? And especially when it comes to our closest relationships. So I've just got some reflections on this that I want to basically just submit to you as you're listening to this, and just kind of give you some food for thought around this. And you'll pick up, basically, I'm basically saying, here's my answer to this question at the moment. I think this is still, I'm still pondering these things quite deeply, but this is my current answer to this question. And I'd love for you to consider, how you feel about it as well. And hopefully, consider how you might be able to change your behavior and how you describe things to more powerfully protect your close connection with the people that you love the most. So first up, when are these, I'm calling them non-ideal descriptors, right? So when we call that's just beautiful, or that's just generosity, or that's a wonderful, obviously these positive descriptors, I think we can say across the board, are wonderful and helpful and beautiful. And so we're talking about one of these negative or not ideal. Some of them, I even saying negative descriptor might be too extreme. And hey, some of these descriptors, it's like, I would see this as a negative, and somebody else might say, capitalism, for example, or socialism. In one context, it's like, well, that's just capitalism. You got a group of people together, and when they refer to capitalism, they all know, they're all in agreement. That's, the blight of humanity. And then you have another group who are like, well, that's socialism, and that's shorthand for dysfunctional and awful, And so, but anyways, we're talking, when are these, when we mean them in a non-ideal way, when we're describing something that's, that's not ideal, when I'm just submitting to you, when do I think these things can actually be helpful? I think I've observed that it can be helpful. This, again, I wouldn't call this negative. I would just call this maybe not ideal or out of the norm. When a child might have developmental challenges or social challenges, or in some way, I have observed that it can be quite helpful. We've had friends who at different times there's been a pressure to embrace a label for their child on a particular developmental thing, and that's been a real wrestle in the heart of the parent, because man, once you embrace a label, man, that can be pretty difficult to remove. That can be pretty tough to wash off once it's there. But then at the same time, if we can embrace that descriptor, I have seen at times, I've watched some of our close friends embrace a descriptor around a learning challenge, for example, that in the long run, their feedback to me is that was the best thing we did. It was really tough. It was scary to embrace the label, but looking back, embracing embracing the label of autistic, or embracing the label of ADHD or something like this, looking back, was actually the most loving and helpful thing to do in that situation, because basically what it meant is it helped the community around the family to be able to adjust to something that we all agree is not going to change. And so we need to adjust rather than requiring that individual to try to adjust. We're embracing, actually, we're going to embrace that descriptor, and we're going to actually adjust our behavior to cater to that. And so that is an example of where I've seen that kind of thing quite helpful, actually. And then, I think it can be, obviously, I don't know if I'd call it helpful, but I'd say at least it's benign. If you got two individuals, like me and my brother, we'll get together and we'll talk about things. We see eye to eye on quite a lot. And we might refer to certain isms, in the philosophical or political or ideological sense. And I think that, I don't see anything particularly damaging to any particular relationship as we get together. We might be chilling in the hot tub, and talking about different things. And it's like because there's a sense of agreement there on a particular idea that maybe has been tried, for example, communism. For me and my brother, we'd probably get together. We've got a fair bit of agreement around, I think, on the whole, communism didn't work very well. It doesn't work very well for humanity to thrive. That's our particular perspective. And so we will get together and chat about that kind of thing, and it's shorthand. And I don't really see anybody being too negatively impacted by that. Soon as you have somebody in the conversation, in the hot tub with us, who's coming from a radically different perspective, who has a totally different life experience, maybe has grown up in a completely different environment, and who might actually have very different feelings about communism, and might see that in more of a neutral light, or maybe even in a positive light. Well, all of a sudden, that ism, right, discussing it in that way, I would say probably ceases to become helpful. In that context, we're much better off actually engaging at a heart level rather than using the isms, and talk more specifically about values for integrity, values for hard work, values for honor, values for freedom, values for fairness, values around compassion and care, all those kind of things, right? It's better to jump into that space. That would be my observation. And then of course, if you need to reflect back on something from your family history, it's like, yeah, we have typically struggled with alcoholism or gambling-ism. I don't know if there's an ism there, but if there's a reflecting back, or even on a broken connection, somebody that caused you a huge amount of pain, and you're connecting with your counselor, and you're trying to not feel crazy, and in a very private context, it's helpful for you to not feel crazy, to go, gee, my counselors helped me to see actually what's going on here is there was narcissistic tendencies, right? Again, you'll see this in my language. I don't really like branding someone as a narcissist. It just grates with every cell in my being to just paint that picture over a child of God. I struggle to imagine God labeling any of his children in that way, right? And so if he's not going to label his children in that way, if God isn't doing that, then I would prefer not to do that myself. Now, is God doing that? Is God not doing that? That's a matter of faith and belief and perspective. My personal conviction is I don't, from everything I know of the character of God, I don't see God doing that. I certainly wouldn't label any of my children in that way. I'm going to be honest about how I feel about my children's behavior and how it affects me and the people around me, whether or not I see it healthy. But I'm not going to be labeling it, putting them in these categories of isms, right? Because it's coming away from the realm of personal and heart connection. And so let's dive into the next question, of course, is when have I observed these descriptors as not being helpful and being really unhelpful, actually? And straight away, the first one is pretty obvious. It's when we're labeling someone's behavior that you love and are trying to have a close relationship with, face-to-face or behind their back. If you think that saying, oh, you're gaslighting me, like that's gaslighting. If you're trying to build a connection with that person, labeling that behavior in that way, using that kind of, psychoanalysis in that moment, I hope it works out for you, but I highly doubt it. I mean, can you imagine the other person going, oh my goodness, wow, thank you so much, right? Because what you're doing is you're taking the conversation out of the realm of heart connection and you're putting the conversation into the realm of ideas. And that is where we argue till the cows come home, right? That's where you're a Republican and I'm a Democrat, you're a liberal and I'm a national, you're a whatever and I'm a this, right? We're putting ourselves on opposite sides of a fence. So when you're so much better off if someone is driving you nuts, rather than jumping to, I'm going to label that behavior, right? Because that's what's right. If the primary motivator is to be right, you're already on the wrong foundation. That conversation is not going to go well, right? Because that is an offensive thing to do, and offense is, generally speaking, going to produce defense. So, my friend, dial that back. That's my encouragement to you. Okay, so somebody says to me, "Whoa, that's just narcissism." Talk to me about what you're feeling. Talk to me about how this behavior is affecting you. Okay, well, when he is a narcissist, okay, let's unpack that a little bit, right? That's your opinion. Do you think that person would agree that they're a narcissist? Probably not. Okay, so already you're putting yourself on two sides of the fence. What is something that the person has done that you could both agree with? When the person raises their tone, when the person responds, and I bring up something that is challenging for me, and then they immediately respond with bringing up something that they're uncomfortable with before they respond to what I've brought up, or they immediately tell me that I'm feeling the wrong thing, or that's really helpful, right? If I say, I actually, narcissism is just a bit of a catchphrase. I actually profess, I don't even really know fully what that means. I don't actually want to know what that means. I don't find these kind of things particularly helpful. In the realm that I'm dealing with, I'm not saying that word should never be used, but I'm saying in the realm that I'm dealing with, in helping people who are fighting for their closest relationships, for heart connection with the people that matter most, I haven't found terms like that particularly produce any good fruit, right? So I'm going, okay, instead of going down that route, I'm going, okay, when I bring up something that you've done that I find painful, and you tell me that I'm crazy, or you tell me that I shouldn't feel this way, I feel trapped, I feel stuck, I feel disrespected. I don't know, fill in the blank. That's powerful because it's vulnerable. That's me telling, there's nothing vulnerable about telling somebody that they're being a narcissist. There's nothing, right? But there is something powerful. There's something vulnerable, Yes, I love Brene Brown's stuff. Always love, because that's when we're in pain. The last thing we want to do is make ourselves more vulnerable, right? But that's exactly what the relationship needs. Actually, I'm injecting trust. Trust is what's on the line here. Trust is what is under threat. And the best way to inject trust, or at least the opportunity for trust to be built in the relationship, is for me to actually lean in and make myself vulnerable. And so I'm opening up my heart and I'm letting you see how your behavior is currently impacting me. If you want to see it, it's an invitation. I'm not shoving it in front of you. I'm not pushing my heart into your face. I'm inviting you. If you want to see the truth of how you're impacting me, I'm going to let you know, right? When are non-ideal descriptors, or you could call them negative descriptors, not helpful? I would say as well, labeling an unhealthy intergenerational family behavior. Again, these things, they end up sitting around and actually becoming like a bit of a self-perpetuating prophecy or curse. Well, we're all, in our family, we're all whatevers. We're all this. We're all, fill in the blank with some negative generic descriptor. It just sort of hangs over the children. And I find it pretty unhelpful. So you got to think, this is something that my dad helped me understand at a young age, which I found so helpful. We've got the battle of the heart, or you could say the battle of the spirit. Really, the spirit, I call it the battle of the spirit, because, the Spirit of God is all about the weaving together of the hearts of people one to another, and between us and each other, and between us and God. That's what God is up to on planet Earth, if you ask me, right? So, but we're talking about, there's at the top level, there's the battle of the heart. In this battle, we're overflowing love onto each other. There's no coercion, there's no manipulation, right? It's not obligation, fear, control. It's from a place of freedom, from a place of choice. We're actually overflowing love onto each other. And we're seeing each other through the subjective lens of love. I often say to my kids, remember, kids, it only takes one genuine relationship with someone to break a pattern of racism. If you have a particular, if there's a racist prejudice against a particular group of people, it only takes one genuine relationship with a person in that category to totally shatter, or at least maybe not totally shatter, but at least to unravel, right? It's like pulling a thread from a sweater. It's like it's going to unravel, that whole framework of thinking that all these people are like this, because you've cultivated, all of a sudden it's personal. As long as I don't have any friends who, identify as transgender, or as long as I don't have any friends who would consider themselves a socialist, or as long as I don't have any friends who identify as whatever, as white, I don't know, as long as I don't have any friends in that category, it's not personal. It's in the realm of ideas. It's a philosophical kind of a thing. But as soon as I actually have a friend who identifies as transgender, as soon as I have a friend who is white, or at least identifies as white, right, ethnically, whatever that means, it breaks that down. It starts to really unravel that. So we've got the battle of the heart, in which we are seeing each other through the lens of love. And then when that battle gets lost, when I no longer see you through the lens of love, I'm no longer I'm no longer overflowing love onto you and you to me. And now we are in the battle of ideas. And this is the whole political realm, right? It's because you can't love someone that you don't know. And so we're trying to make these nation states and cities work where we're all trying to cooperate together. And so that's a reality, that's a reality. We've got the battle of ideas, and we wrestle and wrestle and wrestle, and we never arrive. We never will. We'll never arrive as long as we have human beings governing each other on planet Earth. We'll never arrive. This argument, it's necessary. This necessary argument around what is good for humanity will rage on, and we have to engage in that space. And I engage in that space. I do it with a degree of grief in my heart. I wish that planet Earth was just completely and utterly immersed in nothing but love. And there was no battle of ideas because we're all too busy just completely overflowing love one to another. That would be my preference. It's not the case on planet Earth. And so I willingly, but with sorrow in my heart, I engage in the wrestle around ideas. Now, what happens when that battle gets lost? When we lose the battle of agreeing together on ideas, then we go to the physical battles. We started out in the heart and the spirit, then we went down to the battle of ideas, and then we've lost that. And now we're in the physical battle where we are actually physically hurting each other. We are trying to damage each other. We are trying to wound each other and even kill each other, right? And so it's important to recognize those, because particularly, what I'm really wanting to get at here is the discipline of not bringing the battle of ideas into the battle of the heart. When we're talking about your closest relationships, we're talking about your family, we're talking about your partner, your spouse, we're talking about your children, we're talking about your teammates, the people that you do life with day in, day out. It's so important to keep the language we use within the realm of the battle for heart connection, right? So when the relationship is strained, and I want to label their behavior, right? I want to go down into the battle of ideas. It's like, you're just wrong, right? You're wrong because of this, and I'm no longer in connection mode. Right now I'm in self-preservation mode, because you've done something that has upset me to the point where I'm triggered, I'm off balance, and I'm feeling a threat to my whatever, my security, my my sense of peace and dignity. Something is under threat, and now I'm in fight or flight mode, right? So between Cora and I, we recognize this stuff. I will say, time out. I am no longer good for this conversation, because the goal in my heart just shifted. I observed it, and just the way you said that, and maybe it's because of 100 other conversations we've had in the past, and you just said something that triggered something in me, and now I'm mad, now I'm frustrated, and I realize when that happens, the goal shifts. From connection mode, I'm no longer open, I'm no longer curious, I'm no longer leaning in, I'm no longer at peace. Now I'm under threat, right? And I go into that mode, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with going into that mode. The problem is when I try to have a heart connection and communicate in heart connection language with someone when my heart is actually in self-preservation mode, when I'm in the battle of ideas, because I'm in self-preservation mode, right? If I'm in that mode, I got to call timeout. I got to go, no way. That mode might work when we are on the protest line and when we're battling for a particular legislation to be passed. That mode is okay, but not here in my relationship with my wife, in my relationship with my child, in my relationship with my teammate, with my parent. Bringing that language into this context is going to be very damaging. And so I just go, time out. I'm no longer in connection mode. I'm in self-preservation mode. It's better for both of us if I actually just get some space and I got to deal with me. I'm basically giving myself a timeout. And man, Cora appreciates this stuff so much. She goes, thank you so much. You know, it's a little bit annoying, a little bit frustrating, because it means the thing isn't going to get resolved right now. But she recognizes if I push through when I'm in that mode, and I want to start labeling her behavior. Well, you're just doing that because you're like this, you know, da 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 da. That's, well, that, don't you realize that that's not, I don't know, biblical? Don't you realize that that's not this? Don't you realize that, you know, don't you realize you're being selfish? Don't you realize you are being this? That's thisism or thatism, right? I go into that mode, it's going to cause nothing but havoc, right? It's going to cause nothing but pain. So I'm asking the question, am I in self-defense crisis mode, or am I in connection mode, leaning in, open, and looking for solutions? There's a little video that we really enjoy. You find it on YouTube. Can't remember what it's called, but if you like search in YouTube above the line or below the line, there's a really cool little clip. It's about, I don't know, 2 minutes long, maybe 2.5 minutes. And it just talks about that simple reality, like, am I above the line or am I below the line? Am I in a space of creativity and openness and health? And am I leaning in, or am I in a self-preservation, self-defense mode? And if I am, no problem. I just got to own that, and I got to do whatever it takes before I start pushing for the resolution of the connection. You know, I gotta, you know, I'll find myself, one of my kids does something again, and I can't believe they would do that again. Like, we've crossed this bridge so many times, right? And I'm just in disbelief. And there's definitely a part of me that just wants to march across my living room to their door, knock on the door, and deal with it right then. And I've just learned over the years, well, it still does occasionally happen, if I'm honest. I'm still learning this, to just calm the farm, get myself back into a healthy space, right? And just consider, rather than blasting them with an accusation about what they're doing, how is this behavior making me feel? How is this causing me to feel? What am I feeling right now? What actually is just the stress of the day coming into this dynamic? What's important to me in this relationship? How do I foster the heart connection with my child in this moment? How do I push for more than just trying to get them to change their behavior? How do I actually push for a deeper connection in this moment? And I've got to do whatever it takes to get myself back into a space where actually I'm no longer feeling under threat, right? Because as long as I'm feeling under threat, I'm going to be in self-defense mode. There's just no way around it. That's just how it is. So I've got to get myself back into a place. And I've got my strategies. And you need to have your strategies. When you feel under threat, what are your strategies for getting yourself back into a healthy space, right? I know what mine are, and you need to think about what those are for you as well. Next question, would they agree, this is still under the banner, when the relationship is strained and I want to label their behavior? The next thing is, would they agree with my label of their behavior as being true? If I say, you're gaslighting me, what do I think that's going to happen? What do I think they're going to do? Are they likely to agree with that? Or they likely to say, oh, interesting, tell me more? Are they likely to say, yep, absolutely, 100%, totally gaslighting you right now? No. I would say in most cases they are definitely not. But maybe they will. I don't know. You got to ask that question. Would they agree? Because if they disagree with that label, all you've done is inject something new to argue about. We're already having an argument about whether or not the kids brush their teeth, or whether whose job it was to pay that bill or organize that thing. We're already having an argument about that. Now I inject, you're gaslighting me, right? Well, guess what? I've just added, hooray, how awesome. I've added one more thing for us to argue about in this guy. Because, of course, what's the person likely to say? No, I'm not. Okay, awesome. Forget about the original argument. Let's argue about this new thing. Let's argue for the next 30 minutes about whether or not I'm gaslighting you. Fantastic. Not fantastic at all. That's super unhelpful. So, right? So, because they're very unlikely to agree with that, then you've just injected something new to argue about. Whereas if you say, hey, I'm not feeling safe in this conversation, I'm not feeling respected. Very difficult to argue with that. Somebody says, you should feel safe. you go, whoa, that's my cue for boundaries. As soon as you start telling me what I should feel or what I shouldn't feel, now I really know, time out, I'm going to do that kindly. Hey, I'm not interested actually in being told what I should or shouldn't feel. So I'm not feeling very respected, and I would really appreciate it if you could change that. Let's time out. Let's take, I need a timeout because I'm not feeling very good. You let me know when you're ready to have a respectful conversation. I'm ready to have a respectful conversation. Well, I'm not seeing that as being the case. I'm not feeling very respected. If you'd like to know what I need in order to feel respected in this conversation, please let me know. I don't give a stuff what you need. Okay, no problem. All good. Let me know if you become interested at some point in what I need in order for me to feel respected in this conversation. See what I'm doing? I'm maintaining control of me. I'm keeping it in the realm of vulnerability. And I'm keeping myself in a healthy space. You're inviting me into a disrespectful conversation, and I'm maintaining, I'm not going there. I'm not biting that hook. I'm not interested in disrespectful conversations. I want to respect me, and I want to respect you, right? Okay, next up is, am I more committed to being right about my label for their behavior than I am to being connected to them? Am I more interested in being right, or am I more interested in being connected? Because if it's like, yeah, but you actually are being narcissistic. Like, actually, you are being that is toxic masculinity. Like, I can't get it out of my head. Like, that's what's important to me right now. You are gaslighting. That is the number one priority for me, is you agreeing with me that that's what you're doing. If that is your priority, Houston, we have a problem. Time out, get out of there. Pull that ripcord and get the heck out of there. Because if your primary goal is being right about that descriptor, that opinion, that conversation's not going anywhere. The only way the conversation is going to be helpful is if you've got two people who are genuinely more interested in being connected than they are in being right. Cool? How will my label for their behavior help us to understand each other deeply and grow closer? Cool, okay? You've established in your mind, you think this person is gaslighting you. Here's the question. How will that label, gaslighting, for their behavior help us to understand each other deeply and grow closer? Okay, if it accomplishes that, then more power to you. Awesome. I think most cases it's probably not going to help, right? It's going to be far more powerful to take a step back and think about what specifically are they doing, something that they could agree with. Maybe they're raising their tone. Maybe they're furrowing their brow. Maybe they are going silent. Maybe they are like walking away. You know, did you see that? I almost wanted to say storming off, but even that, it's like, I'm not storming off. You know what I mean? It's like we got to be as specific as we can. We got to describe the things that, because we've got to land on some agreement, right? You know, when Cora says to me, when you've got your furrowed brow, right, and your tone gets like, your tone gets aggressive, your tone gets raised, this is how it's causing me to feel. I can listen to that and go, yeah, okay, yeah, my brow is furrowed. Yeah, my tone is getting intense, actually. I can own that because we're getting quite specific. That's not an attack on my character. It's simply something that we can both agree on. And then she's letting me know how that causes her to feel. Can you adjust that, Matt? Can we change the tone? Can we get some softness in the eyes, please? And I go, yeah, sure, I can do that. Or I'm going to say, I don't think I'm capable of that right now, actually. I'm super mad, and I'll let you know when I am. See, that's the kind of thing that helps us to understand each other. Okay, I hear you. This is what you need. You need me to change the softness in my eyes. You need me to change the tone of my voice, right? Okay, I understand. I hear you. You're not capable of being kind right now. Thank you for helping me understand that. Thank you for sharing that with me. I understand. I've been there too. Let me know when you feel differently, right? We're helping each other understand each other deeply And lastly, am I using this label as a way of hiding the truth that I'm actually feeling hurt? Am I using this as a vulnerability shield? I'm drawing attention away from my vulnerability and towards you being the problem. So rather than actually open my heart to you and share with you how I'm really feeling, I'm just going to use this label, right? Because I'm so right. But it's right. That's what makes it okay. Just be whatever. You have nothing to gain from accurately describing someone's negative behavior if it ultimately produces disconnection between you and that person. If the goal is connection, if the goal is trust, right? Then my question is, how is that helping, right? So, and you've got to ask that question, I've really got to look at that deeply and ask myself that question, am I using this label as a way of actually hiding the truth of how you really are actually causing me to feel, how your behavior is causing me to feel? Because if that's the case, ditch it, friends. You don't need a vulnerability shield. It's not helping you, right? It's not helping you. You may decide to not share anything at all. You don't have to be vulnerable, right? But if the goal is connection, don't show up with the vulnerability shield. If the goal is disconnection, if the goal is to get away, if the goal is to protect myself from you, don't show up in that conversation, right? That's not necessary. But if the goal, we're trying to resolve something, we're trying to rebuild trust here, we're trying to understand each other, you got to leave your vulnerability shield behind. That thing is not going to help. You got to toss that thing. It's like showing up to the doctor and saying, hey, I got a problem downstairs, metaphorically speaking. And the doctor's going to go, okay, well, drop trowel and I'm here for you. Let's have a look. And you look at him and go, what the heck? What's wrong with you, you sick freak? I'm not taking my pants down. It's like the doctor's going to look at you like, well, okay, that's fine, but you can't have it both ways. Like, I can help you, but you got to trust, you got to extend some trust here. Like, I don't need you to drop your pants. Like, I've got 3 other patients outside the door waiting to, it's like, okay, no problem. Move on to the next doctor. But let's call a spade a spade. Like, if you want help from me, this is going to take some vulnerability. This is going to take some honesty. This is going to take some drop trowelness, and so it's same in your closest relationships. Right? Don't come into those conversations armed with a whole bunch of isms and labels for negative behavior. That's not going to help. We got to leave that stuff behind and come into that conversation. If you want to come into that conversation at all. If you don't want to, then don't. But if you do come into the conversation, come into it. Come into that doctor's office ready to drop trowel. Right? If you really want help, make that decision before you even show up. I'm probably going to have to, you know what I mean? I'm probably going to have to do something that's very, very uncomfortable. I'm probably going to have to show this doctor parts of my anatomy that I do not want to show this doctor. But there's something more important to me than immediate self-preservation, and it's my health. And so I'm willing to do the uncomfortable thing. I'm willing to embrace the vulnerability because my health is important to me, right? And that's what it's like. It's like there's times where I don't want to tell Cora what I'm really thinking. I don't want to tell my friend, my teammate, or my child what I'm really feeling right now. It's just going to create a sense of distance in the immediate. It's probably likely to frustrate them. I might be worried that it's going to trigger them like crazy. I don't want to do that. That sucks. It's no fun at all, but there is something that is very, very important to me, more important to me than my immediate comfort, and it's the long-term building of a healthy relationship with this person. And because of that, I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to show up ready to be vulnerable, ready to actually inject real heartfelt language around how this person's behavior is impacting me, how it's causing me to feel, if they're up for it, if they're willing, if they'll accept my invitation for me to show them what's really going on inside, right? Because that's what it takes. Alrighty, friends, that is it for Are All These Negative Labels Helping Us? I hope that's given you a few things to think about. We'll see you in the next episode. Much love.
We hope you found the conversation and stories on today's podcast helpful and insightful. If you want to go deeper, Restoring Connections offers online courses that cover key topics like personal responsibility, proactive care, powerful communication, and healthy boundaries. Go to www.restoringconnections.nz for more information. This podcast is funded by generous supporters from all over the world. Please consider supporting by going to the Restoring Connections website and hitting the Contribute button. By partnering with us, you're helping to provide mentoring, workshops and training to others who are also restoring their connections.